So what I'm going to talk about is mainly related to classroom management in higher education, but at the same time, there are some issues which is related to K through 12 context, which might be your interest as well, because your students are also coming from that branch. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So, okay. So today what we're going to do is, first of all, I would like to start with the definition of classroom management. So what is classroom management? But first, we will find out what you think about it. So I'm going to share a link with you in a minute, which is Padlet. So I would like you to brainstorm about classroom management. Then I'll talk about some of the models of classroom management, and we will look at some of the problems and researches done in that area, which there's not many research related to classroom management in higher education. Recently, we are carrying out a research with Duygu Hoca related to that. We did a systematic review related to higher education and classroom management. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about the research that we found out. And lastly, I will get your questions and comments. But first of all, as I said, so let's look at what classroom management is. So I would like to get your opinion related to what classroom management is. So I will share a link with you. First of all, okay. So from the chat box, if you look at it, so there is a link. So if you go to that link, you can share your comments related to what classroom management is. When I said classroom management, what do you understand from classroom management? What does it mean to you? So just short, brief things in a couple of minutes. If you can write down your comment, it will be okay. So now I'm going to share my screen with you. Then you can see, I mean, you're already seeing it in front of you. So we have really good definitions of classroom management. So we got classroom management, classroom environment that's safe, conducive to learning, exploring and making mistakes, establishing effective learning environment. So arrangement, application of instructional design components, including students. So we got being aware of all the students in your classroom. Vividness, there's a term for that, and then just being aware of what's going on in your classroom. So keeping their interest, monitoring actions. We got a functional classroom. So we got maintaining, organizing, learning environment. So we got all of the stuff, engaging students. So everybody got some sort of experience in this classroom. And then I can see that you're also experiencing K-12 context as well in this classroom. So which is a different issue. So thanks for sharing your comments. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen if I can. Yes. Okay, now let's go back to the definition. So thank you for your comments regarding to classroom management. So let's look at how it is defined in the literature. Not much more different than what you said. And this is one of the traditional definitions done by Doyle. It's actions and strategies teachers use to maintain order. So I know that these keywords were in some of your in classroom management brainstorming ideas. So you got the similar things. Another definition, again, these people are famous in classroom management, Weinstein and Everson. And their 2006 definition, the actions teachers take to create an environment that supports and facilitates both academic and social emotional learning. So here we see that it's not just academic learning, it's also social and emotional learning as well. So that's why I like this definition as well, not just academic. And when we look at the research, while we were carrying out research about classroom management in higher education, now we come across some of the definitions of students. So how students are defining. So these are defined by some people, famous people related to classroom management. But what about students, according to students? So based on a research done by Hong in 2019, which is a recent one, according to students, based on his research, it is managing and building a classroom environment, forming and applying classroom rules. So you see that this is, according to students, it is much, I think, smaller than what we think as a classroom management, as a teacher, or in the definition. They just concentrate on environment and also forming rules and applying it. That's what they said in their comments. So now we will do an activity with you. The beginning, maybe I should say something. Now, this beliefs on discipline inventory is prepared by the references given in the worksheet that I will share with you in a minute. And it is done by Wolfgang and Glickman. And actually, it is designed for K-12 context. But I got worries about using this inventory with you because I wasn't sure whether it will be okay for this context or not. But later on, I think that the things that you experience, I mean, when you're answering the questions in the inventory, I would like you to put yourself into the shoes of K through 12 teacher. So think about this context. But whatever model or whichever just thought you have in your mind, you can just decide on your model and a classroom management model, and it will affect your, of course, performance in the higher education as well. So that's why I'm going to share with you the link. We were thinking of sharing it through chat screen, but since it is not working right now, I'm going to share it with you. So it will take you to beliefs on discipline inventory. In this inventory, the instructions are given there. So there are options. There is one question, and so what you will do is you will look at the questions and then choose the option that you think it best fits with you. And then after that, it is this inventory. And based on your choices, I would like you to write down your scores from section 1, section 2, section 3. So this will give you an idea of whether you got high control, low control, or medium control teaching style. Okay? So if you're ready, it will take, I think it is almost 1:15. It will take 10 minutes, I'm assuming, not more than that. So at your own pace. So if you can complete it, we can talk about it later on. Okay? I'm going to continue with what we mean by, what we mean by high control. So if you understand from the thing, it says high control, it is the high control is the teacher. The teacher got the whole control most of the time. I mean, like low degree of concern of student thoughts and feelings, preferences. Rules are first, and then maybe instruction will come later on. But first rules is the control, and then teacher should control everything, rules, routines, and everything to be decided by the teacher. Whereas in the medium control, it's in between, as you can understand. Medium degree concern for students, thoughts, feelings, and preferences. And at the same time, like in the high control, it's more like the individual student, not concentrating on the group group dimensions as well. But whereas in the medium control, you're thinking about that this is a whole group. Like in higher education, we got a whole bunch of students in the classroom, like 40 students in the classroom. So you cannot just deal with one student all the time. When you look at the medium control people mainly concerned with the whole group approach. Of course, dealing with the individuals, but mainly just bearing in mind the whole class, what's going on in the whole class. Kunin is very famous in medium control, in classroom management. Jacob Kunin is, and he's so famous about that. When we look at the low level, low teacher control, high degree of concern for students' thoughts, feelings, and preferences. So you are giving more responsibility to students and improve their self-regulation skills and also help them to be responsible about what they are doing. So, and you are as a guide in this case. So most of the time in this inventory, you're getting in between. I mean, and there is no, when we look at the books, there is no one strict line saying that, okay, you are a medium control. You are sometimes as instructors or teachers, when we go into the classroom, our level of degree of control is changing from one class to another. Like undergrad students that are first graders are going to be different than fourth graders, I'm sure. And then the same thing, like if you have like 10 students in the classroom, your degree of control could be different than having 60 students in the classroom. So you see that a lot of things affect classroom management models of the teacher. including the time of the class as well. I mean, if you are teaching last 2 hours on Friday night, it's going to be different. The whole class will be in a different mood. Like right now, we are teaching online at night. So just think about this case. And then I'm going to talk about this at the end of the presentation. I gathered some information from our alumni who are teaching in universities prep classes, not just from Bilkent University, from other universities as well. So I gathered some information from their from their experiences related to classroom management. What are they having as a classroom management problem in this online environment? So I will talk about this at the end. But what I have seen is the time of the the time of the teaching is important too, besides many other things. So as we said, models could be affected from many different things, starting from the background of the students, number of them, the hour that you teach, a lot of stuff. But as people, we have some sort of model in our mind, and we do it. Sometimes it really doesn't matter. How I know it is I'm teaching now at master level, PhD level, but I'm also teaching sometimes at K through 12 as well. I'm going there as an invited speaker. So I'm changing, of course changing, but not changing that much. And that's why I would like to do this inventory with you. Okay, so what type of classroom management do you have in your class? Now I'm going to give a word to you. So just get your opinion. Try to get your opinion. What sort of problems do you have? You may add online problems as well, online learning environment problems, plus face-to-face classroom problems that you have. Or maybe no problem.
Where will we write our problems?
What's that? Sorry.
Where will we write our problems?
You can say it right now. It's a small group of people, so you don't need to write. Just
in a university class, actually, I think the most important problem is students' engagement. I mean, sometimes students check their mobiles and do other stuff than concentrating on work. I think this is an issue that we frequently face in university classes.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I got from our alumni who are teaching, and as I said, at the university level, they said that mobile phones, and especially in online teaching, that we don't know what they're doing. They're turning off their cameras, and then we don't know what's going on with their mobile phones or even with the computer, and they are looking at the screen, but we don't know where they are looking at. So whether even in the classroom, it is hard to find out whether the student is daydreaming or not. And like in the online environment, it's even worse than that. So just thank you, Aliki. Any other? Yes, Anita.
Yeah, I've been speaking with my students when they're doing their student teaching. We've been trying to come up with ideas for the excuse as connectivity issues for the camera being off, because many times the high school students say, well, my internet's bad. And frankly, when I'm in my home apartment office here, mine's bad too. Mine's much better in my classroom. So I understand that. And sometimes they say, we have to turn it off so that our connection is better. So I don't know if this is the appropriate time in your presentation for this, but whether or not we've started to brainstorm things like sending messages in the chat and using the emojis and reactions and, different kinds of improving student engagement, because we're workarounds for this excuse that they have to have their camera off.
Yeah, and also the other thing is asking a question, directing a question by calling out the name of the student. Then you can easily find out if there is no answer. Again, they have things to say that, okay, I have an internet connection problem, so I didn't hear you, this and that. So we hear these sort of stories, but that was also another thing. Jenny, you were going to say something.
Yeah,
is raising hand. Okay.
Can I go?
Yeah,
Me?
yeah, you're going to be, yeah.
I'm just wondering again at the university level. I agree with the engagement issue, but I'm wondering, does classroom management encompass student responsibility? I have problems with students' procrastination and not especially like with their thesis work and other things, not, time management. Is that beyond classroom management? Is it?
Yeah, well, of course it is part of it. I mean, just learning environment, but it is beyond, a little bit of beyond that, I think. Tufan Hocam, you would like to say something? It looks like. God.
Yeah, one thing is actually, so some of my students who don't turn on their cameras during the class, class time, during the lecture, when I do, breakout rooms. So magically their cameras, start operating again when I check what's going on there. So that's an interesting thing. So what I try to do is actually making it as interactive as possible, so that they can engage, and then I can tell, even if the camera is off, I can still tell they are actually doing so. So that thing, I think Anita said. So for example, I ask questions like yes or no questions. How many of you say yes? How many of you say no? That kind of a thing. So they are supposed to be constantly paying attention to what's going on. So that kind of interaction actually, I think, particularly helps, even if some of them don't prefer turning on their camera.
Thank you, Tufan Hocam. Reyhan Hocam?
I completely agree with Tufan Hocam. I keep them busy all the time. And not having their videos on, I understand, because of the inequality among them. So I just requested them to open at the beginning to say hello when they're asking or answering a question, and at the end to say bye-bye. And in between, I'm using Google Drive, Moodle, Nearpod, Zoom, breakout rooms, polls, etc. So they are busy, but that is not easy. I prepare a lesson plan. It takes a lot of time, minute by minute, what we are going to do. How am I going to keep them active? And finally, I figured out that the quizzes in which Nearpod has this facility, the correct answer is immediately visible to the students, is a great learning tool.
Yeah.
So I say I'm not going to grade you. Your participation is important. And after the quiz, when I measure, yes, learning is done. Yeah. So for people who do not want to learn, there's nothing I can do, and I'm not going to waste my time for those.
Yeah.
Let them go.
Yes, Reyhan Hocam, you're right. I mean, Nearpod is a good application. We send emails back and forth with you. So I'm introducing it to my students in TE 520 course. So it's so useful. I used it in PDs. Yeah, I mean, just while I was giving PD, classroom management PD to teachers. So we used that. And it is so nice for you to track it afterwards. I mean, not just during the lesson.
Yeah, immediately you see. Yeah. I have 46 students, and it's impossible for me to follow them from Moodle or Zoom, etc. But Nearpod shows me the percentage of the responses, their activity, and gives a very nice report.
Yes, and also at the end, you will see it. You can keep it. You can keep the record of what they have done so far. So it is one thing as well. So when we go back to our original question, it's about let's look at the classroom management problems. Because of the situation that we have right now, I know that everybody is more concentrated on online environment. That's what I was expecting. So that's now what we are experiencing. We really forget what we have been what we were having as a problem in the classroom environment. Now when we said classroom environments, just remember the online environment right now. So according to you, what is disruption? So when I said disruption, what does it mean? Is it something that prevents you to teach something? Or is it that breaks down your concentration? So again, I'm going to ask you, colleagues, so what do you think about when I said disruption? What does it mean?
I mean, in a K-12 classroom, a lot of times it's things outside your control, like announcements, like assemblies, things that take away from class time that we have to manage when, there's an interruption, someone comes in your class, or there's an announcement over the loudspeaker, or things like that, where we have to stop our instruction. So I don't even think of my students being disruptive. I think of all of the other variables that happen in a high school classroom that disrupt our learning.
What about in the higher education context in your classrooms? I mean, not just right now, not the online environment. Just think about the physical environment, face-to-face sessions. So what were the things that caused disruption in your classroom? Think about your own context. Yes, Tufan Hocam.
So if we were talking about online context, then it is of course the internet connection problems and things like that, and technological problems. But in the classroom, I think the disruption would be students chatting with each other at the back or in front or something like that. I mean, I can think of other things. So, for example, I am teaching social political philosophy, for example, and the student just tries to be offensive for some reason, right? And then they just go ahead and they do that, and then some students really get offended, and the quality of discussion is negatively influenced by that. So I think those two are, in my experience, the most.
Yes, thank you, John. Thank you, John. Any other comments? Yes, Jenny.
I mean, this is a minor one, but it just happens occasionally in the real classroom. Is where someone will accidentally walk into your classroom by mistake. It happens on Zoom too, where people will like come in early or mistakenly, and it's only a second or something, but it can be a short disrupting. So,
thank you. Any other experiences in your teaching classroom?
Students who live in a big family. So if there are sisters, brothers, elderlies at home, it's a big family, then they cannot concentrate. And they're not comfortable where they are joining the class. It's either the kitchen or another place with low internet connection.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I had a student said that she was self-conscious speaking English when her family was around, and she just felt like they were too much attention was on her. So
yeah. So what about yes, Emel Hocam?
Thank you. I agree with all of these. I think the kitchen classroom setups are usually quite disturbing for us as well. And also, I think technology, because I teach a project course where they also work in groups. And I know that in the meantime, while we're doing the lecture, they're also chatting amongst themselves, either using the Zoom's chat option or using, their cell phones and their respective WhatsApp groups. And I think that's usually a disruption because their mind is also in that. And I can see them, typing while listening to the lecture. So I think that's a major disruption because they're there physically, but not there. They're not paying attention. And you ask a question and they're completely blank.
Yeah. Their brain is not there. Their body is there, but they're just thinking about something else. Yeah. Yes, you're right. What about the physical environment? Yes, Can Hocam, go ahead.
I have a question about this because I believe, for example, when you are listening something, it's very natural to go to the dictionary and look for some definition. And also it's very natural from time to time to ask quick questions to the friends. If it is not disturbing to the classroom, still they can be as if looking at the dictionary, maybe just checking something very quickly. I take these kind of things not as a disruption because it may be related with the course, and for 45 minutes they cannot concentrate every minute. So I think the disruption is more like an out of context things, or maybe a phone ring, a WhatsApp notification noise kind of thing, because it reminds something else. It alerts people. So these kind of external things seem like disruptions. But I see it's a little bit natural to chat with each other because in the classroom they can also ask some simple questions, but it should be focusing on within the context of the course. If it is out of the context of the course, then I think it's a disruption, personally or as a classroom.
Yeah, I think that, Can Hocam, I think you are right. I mean, at some point you can, but you need to be sure that it is related with the lesson. So how you can do it is, and you should show them that you are aware of this situation, I think, as an instructor. So what you can do is you can take a note, and at the end of the lesson or another time, you can talk with the student and tell that you're aware of that the student is doing something else. And then you can ask the student what he or she is doing at that time. I think that this will be a good idea to learn about it. Other than that, if they will be out of context, and it is really hard to say that. I mean, the student may tell a lie. So this is one of the things that our alumni, I told you at the beginning, I said that I asked them. So they said that trust is so important in an online environment. So we should build some sort of trust among each other. Get to know each other, especially if you are seeing these students for the first time, like in this environment. Like for the third, fourth graders, we have been seeing them maybe for some time. We know them, they know us. But whereas the first years that you're seeing them for the first time, they don't know you and you don't know their personality. So I think that you need to show them that you're aware of it. Otherwise, if you will not show any reaction, then everybody will do the same thing in the classroom. Then you may lose the control. I don't know. I mean, it could be discussable. Of course, I'm sure that there are some other things. Tufan Hoca has been raising hand for some time. So, Hocam.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Can Hoca actually. So they might be checking, other. So for example, what I see is when their cameras are on, the light on their faces change because they change it. So I don't know if you can. Does it change my face a little bit? Yeah. So then I can tell. Maybe they are checking a dictionary or something, but they also smile.
Yes,
right? So I mean, I do make jokes sometimes, but they are not funny jokes. So, but when they start smiling, then I understand they are dealing with something else, right? But my problem is, how can I react? I mean, what can I say? So I know that you are dealing with something else. So then again, I ask if I see too many light up faces, too many happy faces, so to speak. Then I ask a question like, engaging the students. But I'm thinking about what I can do about this. How can I react? How can I let them know that? Because they can always say this. No, I am, concentrated. I am focused on what you are saying. And what can I say then?
Well, I saw that you were smiling. I think that you can talk to them not at the moment it happens. You may talk with them maybe later on. I mean, if you can maybe monitor the student for some time. If it goes on, then you can talk with the student. I think
you may talk to them so individually. So
I think so. Yeah, if there's a student, I think that this will make. I mean, first of all, try to find the reason. I think, but the major thing is when we look at the classroom management in all dimensions, not just K through 12. It says that always be careful and be ready starting from the first lesson. Let them know your rules, let them know your routines. So let them know the consequences of their behavior starting from the beginning. So if they will know that you're aware of this, and they also say that do not underestimate minor classroom management issues. Just show some sort of reaction. If you will not show any reaction, then it will grow and then everybody will get affected related to that. Because they may think that, okay, the teacher is not caring about it, so let's do whatever we want, sort of approach. Yes, Anita, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been on the same page about how the more students are engaged, the less we have like disruptions and issues. And regarding cell phones, I try to talk to my students about it, whether it's high school or university level, about how, like we're adults, we're professionals. Like right now in a meeting, we're not all on our cell phones, but it doesn't mean they're not all in front of us because we have them and they're part of our lives. And instead of making it like a taboo, like anti-technology thing, when we create the classroom environment where we have moments like if we're doing a Kahoot quiz, it's like, okay, everybody pick up your phone, type in the pin, let's do the quiz. And then we're all on our phones. And then when that's over, okay, put your phone down. No phones right now. Now let's talk about this. And then, like John said, what if we're looking up a word? Or what if we're checking something in, I have a group me chat with my classes. Then they have a WhatsApp chat that doesn't have me involved in it, which is also good. And I think that if we try to cultivate this environment the way that all of us are acting in a seminar, then when there's appropriate times and inappropriate times to use your phone, then we have less of that like taboo, like you're not allowed to touch your phone issue. I mean, I had grad classes, like a PhD course where one of our professors would say, put your phones in this basket. I'm like, really? Like, I'm not 12 years old. Like I don't like that. Like it shouldn't be, and a lot of us, I don't personally, but people have children, people have things that they need to have their phones with them. So, and it's not going to be perfect. Someone's always going to look at their phone for something, but the more we're engaged and the more we make our phones and technology part of our class, then we can kind of establish that like no one should be on their phone right now. Okay. But then in 10 minutes, we're all on it doing something. So I think that tends to help a little bit.
Thank you, Anita. Yes, Reyhan Hocam.
I think if you're joining me, please raise your hand. The new generation, especially the digital natives, are very, very multitasking. It doesn't mean that if they are texting, they are not listening to you. I mean, if our purpose is that we have a purpose, we are expecting an outcome. If our students are capable of reaching to that outcome, even though they text to each other or look at the dictionary or check something else that they have remembered or take a note, etc., I believe unless it is disturbing the others, we should just let them be happy. They will be engaged.
Jenny, last verse, then I need to continue. Go ahead. Microphone is off.
Just quickly along those lines, what is the argument that these are adults now? And again, as Reyhan said, as long as they're not disturbing someone, it's their choice to pay attention or not. And you can only do so. I'm being the devil's advocate here. At this point, so that's all I had to say.
I was going to say, if it's going to be your rule of the class, then if you negotiate with them at the beginning of the semester, and then if they also think that they will learn in this way, then you can do that. As far as an instructor, you change from one student to another. So then you may do that. But in the physical environment, most of the time it causes disruptions among the students. And one of the students, while using the mobile phone, can learn at the same time, but the other one may not, but they may get affected from each other. So we should bear those things in mind as well, I think. I'm not saying I'm against it, but we should think about, and we need to consider the whole group performance, not just individuals, I think. So based on that, we can give choice. I mean, we can make choices and then starting from the semester and be consistent throughout. Of course, having flexibilities. So that was going to be my reaction to that. Okay, there is a lot to discuss. If we continue, I got almost. It's one of the other things is time management in classroom management. I just taught it today to my students, so I need to keep an eye on my time as well. 10 more minutes to go. So this is from research. Now, this is from Turkish context, and I have another one from Times Higher Education. So these are the percentages that's given in one of the university, of course. It's not a big scale research. As I said, there's not much research related to higher education and classroom management. So it is in one context, one city. So it's hard to generalize it. But when we look at the percentages, these are the most common disruptive behaviors according to instructors. It's asked to instructors. So chatting with friends is accepted as the most disruptive behavior for the instructors. Talking out of turn, drawing pictures on the desk. I mean, even though we think that this is not a disruption, but the instructor is thinking that this is out of task. So while I know many students are listening and learning at the same time drawing, but as I said, this is from one context. Using mobile phones, I was expecting to be more than that, but since the research is carried out in 2011, most probably that's why it is that low. Asking permission for going out and getting out of seat without permission. So these are the things from a Turkish context. And now this is even an older, just research in Times Higher Education article, and these are the figures from their article. Chatting with friends is again the top one. You'll see that this is common. So this is, the instructors are getting really disturbed from this. Chatting with friends, mobile phone ringing, even though this time ringing in class, not talking, but ringing in class. Entering late, texting in class, preparing to leave early. This is also another thing in higher education classrooms, what I attended. Sometimes we are doing sessions with other faculties, like brain dissection with the psychology students. So we are in touch with the other undergraduate departments as a graduate school of education. So I'm not saying that just for this specific department, but what I observe is this is also a case, not just in high schools and other places, also in the university, preparing to leave early or even leave early, and acting bored and apathetic. These are the things from the research. So now I was planning to do another activity, but unfortunately we don't have time, so I'm going to skip this. I was going to ask you what are the acceptable things, but we sort of discussed these acceptable and unacceptable behaviors that we discussed sort of. But just before I continue, maybe, if we will have time, we'll talk about this at the end, because I would like to continue with what affects classroom management. So these are from the research. When we look at the research, and we as instructors also experiencing this, what affects our classroom management? Based on the research, as higher education especially, they said that instructor's personality is very important. It's even important than teaching qualifications of the instructor. They said that if they are respectful, then everything is going to be okay. Or if the instructor is democratic in the environment, it is going to be okay. These are the things that they say. And then teaching qualifications, of course. They said that it is so important to use, as we have been discussing throughout the session, interactive learning activities, like being active in the learning environment. And slides after slides, students are getting bored. As we have seen in this picture, they're getting bored. They have a tendency to sleep. Now, I was going to prepare case studies as well, like cases, little cases, common cases in higher education. But since we don't have time, I couldn't do that. But if a student is sleeping in the first row, what are you going to do with this student? So these sort of things we can discuss at the end. So instructor personality comes first, and then teaching qualifications, which is related with the personality. Of course, so important. The way that you use your voice, your gestures, your everything, your energy. Like if you will be, especially in the online environment, this is one of the things that I got from my students, who, as I said, who are instructors in the university. They are saying that if I will have a low energy, then my students will have definitely low energy in the online environment, especially if it is a night class. So these are the things that we need to bear in mind, the things that affect classroom management. Features of the facility is another thing that, which means that the classroom size, whether it is big or small. And if they are in an amphi sort of classroom, so what could be the things that you need to think about as an instructor? So, and if they will be uncomfortable, so what will happen? So features of the facility, which includes like online environment as well. If they don't have internet connection, this will affect your classroom management as well. And classroom management ability of the instructor. So we split, when we were analyzing the classroom management studies, we split studies into two. One of them is student views, the other one is instructor views. According to students, they highly value the ability of the instructor. They say that if the instructors see it and act immediately, then this is making a difference. So this is what the students said all the time. And I believe that acting immediately without losing any time over there or without humiliating the student, of course, is the key point that we would like to say. I like this sentence. So as I said, the queen of classroom management is here, Dr. Sanz. So she was the one who was giving classroom management when I was a student at Bilkent University. So she was always highlighting this. And I also like that sentence as well. Prevention is better than cure. So we will try to prevent it first, better than trying to find ways of how to cure it, is one thing that we would like to keep in mind. So these are the things that is suggested when we look at the literature, and it is worth it, really. It's very practical. And gathered from students and instructors. First of all, we need to agree. Agree is the key word here. It's not just our decision, it is our decision as a whole class. So we need to agree and establish, as Reyhan Hocam said in a minute, yes, if you agree with the students to do it this way, then it will work. And then establish clear expectations starting from the beginning, as I said. As you said, if you will be successful at the end of the lesson, if you reach the same purpose by being multitasking, if we are agreed, then that's okay. And the second thing is being consistent. It doesn't matter whether you're in K-12 context or in university, we should be, as instructors, we should be consistent. And this is highlighted even, in higher education as well, being co-professionals with them, not friends with them. So there is just sort of think that we need to, limit, that we need to bear in mind. And do not ignore minor disruptions, as I said. If you ignore it, then it will become a major disruption later on. So we need to keep in mind that minor disruptions are important to act. And always follow up on disruptive behavior. If you got as a rule of absence and lateness, as we got in Bilkent University, attention policy, we got it, then follow it up. This disruptive behavior. If you think that is disruptive, of course, if it is because of being late to the class in the online environment, it's very common. I don't know whether you're experiencing it or not. At the end, if we will have a couple of minutes, we will talk about it. But being late to class is causing you losing your time if you are waiting for people to come before you start. And keeping calm is another thing. We need to think about before we say something to them. If we just act, sometimes I said that act immediately, but at the same time, we need to keep calm and be assertive and do not humiliate students at the same time when we are talking with them. We go there and we try to show a reaction, but at the same time, we need to keep calm. And whatever we say, we have to do that. If we will not do that, it may cause another problem. But at the same time, we should be really very careful about the consequences of our act. If we are going to say, I'm going to send this student to a discipline committee and there's a higher education council discipline things. I was looking at it while I was preparing this presentation. According to this regulation, so I don't know, a lot of students should go to discipline committee. So tight. And then avoid confrontation, quarreling in front of the others. We shouldn't do that. And taking action is important to minimize opportunities for behavior to be disruptive, starting from the beginning. So I was going to end with the teaching environment has changed. We know that. And what to do in online environment, we have been talking about this. As I said, I have taken some notes, but I think the time is over. But briefly, I can say that from my notes, the problems that they have, camera is off, so we don't know what to do. They're using their mobile phones and then looking at the screen, but whether they're on task or not, we don't know. We are using breakout rooms, but I am visiting them one by one. But when I leave the breakout room, I don't know whether they continue to speak in English. This is one of the prep school instructors' comment or not. And then they said that in one of the universities, not Bilkent most probably, participation is not a requirement. So they are not coming into class. We are recording our sessions. They're just watching our lesson recordings and they're passing the grades. These are not all related with classroom management, but sort of related with it. So it is hard to, it is, as you define classroom management, it's a lot. It includes everything. And based on the research, there's a direct correlation between student success and achievement, student achievement and classroom management. We found, I think, 6-7 studies out of 43 stated that there's a high correlation, actually. And then, so I think these are, and as a last word, they said that trust is important and having good relationship with the students are important, especially in the online environment. This is what they said. So I think that is, I'm going to end this because online environment and classroom management is another issue. I was thinking of discussing it at another place. So thanks for listening. And if you have further questions, I can answer it right now, or we can just talk about it right now, but I don't want to take your time. It's almost 2 past. So if you have any questions, I can answer. Or if not, thank you for your participation. And without you, it was impossible to discuss these issues. It's going to be just a presentation otherwise. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Duygu Hocam, thank you to the center for giving me an opportunity to discuss this issue with instructors. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Armağan Hocam, I have a quick question.
Sure.
If we have like 2 minutes.
Sure.
My only concern is when we go back to face-to-face education, when this is over, I don't know when that will be, how are the students going to adapt coming back to class, not doing it on their beds in their PJs? I have difficulty. How will we make them wake up in the morning and come to campus when they know as well that they could have just done it at home in the comfort of their beds in their PJs? So I don't know. I think this adaptation process will also be a challenge for us next year and the year following that.
Evet hocam, that's an excellent question. I think that, I didn't think about this before. Definitely it's going to be a big problem. I'm assuming that's going to be a problem. And especially in terms of classroom management, we will have issues about late comings to the classroom and then use of technology. I'm not going to say Can Hocam and Reyhan Hocam, they are going to... but we have to limit it somehow. I think that, yes, definitely there will be some problems. But I think that since starting in March, we had some, I don't want to say problems, but there was an issue. So one of the people said that speaking simultaneously is not a classroom management problem anymore. So when we start first Zoom sessions, that was one of the problems. Everybody wants to talk at the same time. So the instructor was muting people and giving a turn. Now it is over. So I think that it took some time. So when we go back to face-to-face, there is going to be a transition period. I think now we're going to be flexible as well. We have to. And Tufan Hocam got a point, I think. Yes, Tufan Hocam.
Yes, just a quick thing. So when a student starts, when the student appears to be distracted and focusing on something else than the lecture and things like that. So I take it, rather than a problem with the student, I take that as a feedback for my teaching, actually, right? So I am not being successful in, making this interesting. And I cannot communicate, apparently, how important this thing is that we are talking about. So I am not sure, and I wanted to ask this, I'm not sure if I'm being unfair to myself, or if this is, what we should do as instructors, is this unfair to us, or is this a good way of approaching this, So there is something wrong here, but there is something I should do about it, so not the student. And instead of blaming the student, trying to, think about what can I do, what am I not doing right now? Yeah. And if it is totally independent of my performance, then there is nothing I can do about it. So then I should maybe just accept that student at this point of his or her life or whatever, right, will not be able to engage.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's why we always value the formative assessment, like your performance as well. So when you do a quick check, then or just look at yourself and then do self-assessment of yourself, and then you may see that if there's a problem with you, you can work on it and then try to do something. But if it is beyond you, but you have to be really harsh on yourself to see that whether you are really assessing yourself or not, I think. Yeah.
Armağan, can you hear me, Armağan?
Yes, Dr. Sans.
Yes. I need to say thank you. and do say that the sound here in Bodrum is not good. So I've only picked up a certain amount, and occasionally it rained yesterday and the Wi-Fi fell down. Occasionally it becomes unstable. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much.
Armağan.
Thank you.